Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 190 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. My name is Byron. I'm here with my buddy Gary. And Gary, we've got the youngest competitor to be at ADCC. Her name is Elisabeth Clay, and we're happy to bring her as the interview. I gotta say, she's tied for the youngest, but that's the youngest still. How you doing, Gary?
Oh, I'm doing great. Hey, quick question, Byron. How old is she?
Gary, she's 16 years old as when she qualified for ADCC. She was a blue belt. She trains in Anchorage, Alaska. And, man, that's just all those things are phenomenal. She does have a great team. But, man, somebody 16 getting on the mat with these pros, these killers, and really doing a phenomenal job. And she submitted 2 out of the 4 opponents to get gold, and she's going to do great when she gets there to ADCC. It's going to be a great experience, and I'm proud to bring her to the audience and to get to talk to her over the phone. I really had a great time talking to Elisabeth.
Yep, yeah, we're all definitely lucky that Elisabeth took some time out to drop us some knowledge. So stay tuned and do not miss the interview portion of the show today.
Yep, Gary. I recommend if you are a fan of this podcast, you get on our email list. It's really hard to do. You've got to go to a website called BJJ Brick or Facebook and go to our page on there and then type in your name and email address with a little @ symbol. Man, it's pretty tough. But if you do that, we'll do the rest of the work from there on out, and we'll send you out the show notes every week and tell you who's on the show. You'll get the links to the article of the week and the person who is on the show we're interviewing, everything delivered to your email address. So it's one very difficult thing to do. Sign up for it online. It takes about 2 minutes. And then from there on out, you're good to go. And it's easy. If you don't like it, just click the unsubscribe button. And thanks for stopping by. It's not a big deal.
Byron, that actually doesn't sound hard. You were saying that sounded... Yeah, I thought that was pretty easy, but, sometimes I might be a little more intelligent than some people.
Or you just like to work hard. Yeah, I'd imagine, Gary, have you signed up for the email list?
No, I haven't. I don't have email. I will sign up today, though, just for
man.
you.
Well, you'll probably do it while we're talking.
Just so I know what we're getting. But, hey, speaking of knowing what you're getting, we all want to get better at jiu-jitsu, especially your first year at jiu-jitsu, which is a very, very trying time. You're learning so much. You don't necessarily know what you're doing, or you may just be getting ready to start. You don't know where to start, what school to look for, or anything of that sort. So definitely check out Byron's audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. It's 2.5 hours of Byron helping you through your first year, everything from picking a school. The one I really like is the benefit of jiu-jitsu. I know we talked about it last week as we were talking about some of the gifts to jiu-jitsu, but one big thing is a weight loss. A lot of people, either lose some weight and tone up or just tone up while they're doing jiu-jitsu, and their significant other likes it better, more eye-pleasing. But, it's also more heart healthy, just makes you get you more flexible and get you to be a better overall healthy position. So that's one great thing about jiu-jitsu besides knowing how to stretch somebody's arm out or choke somebody unconscious. So, there are a lot of great benefits. So definitely check it out. We have a link to it in the show notes. Like I said, $11.99, 2.5 hours of contents by the one and only Byron Jabara. And the cool thing is the money from the audiobook goes to keep this brick floating, to keep this show going on. So it's been going on 190 episodes, and we plan on having – Byron was telling me the other day he wants to get to episode 1 billion before we ever think about stopping. So we got a long way to go and a short time to get there.
I think episode 200 is probably within the sights. I think we can get to that one, Gary.
You said 1 billion.
1 billion. I think in my math, I didn't carry the 2.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
did carry the 2. I don't know what happened there, but
We should count every listen that we've ever had and be like McDonald's and say 444,000 served.
yeah, there you go. That's a good idea.
Yep, but I don't know how we'd ever get to that number.
I actually can give you the number right now, Kerry.
The exact number?
Yeah, as of recording the podcast with you right now, 507,121 listens.
507,000. That's half a million.
Half a million downloads. There we go. That sounds
impressive.
better.
Yeah, that's cool.
Over 500,000 downloads, my friend.
Over 500,000 downloads, my friend. Dang, Byron, you're a wealth of information. It's funny. Most people I know say you're not very smart. I don't agree with that.
Well, most people that you know me better than that, so they know me pretty well.
Yeah, that's why they say that.
That's true. So that's that. We don't really talk about our numbers a whole lot, and that 500,000, that's pretty cool. I guess we just crossed that this month. And
yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
Actually, by the time this episode's been out, it's well over that because we're recording this a week and a half in advance. But we couldn't have done it without people listening to the podcast like you that share this podcast with people. We've had a lot of people write reviews on iTunes. That was a big kick for us. That really helped us out a ton. If you enjoy it and you haven't written a review, go by and write us a review. It helps a lot. It helps get our name out. It helps people who are just kind of shopping for a podcast to say, this might be something that I would enjoy and learn from. And if that's something that you want to share with a bunch of strangers looking for a podcast, we appreciate that a ton. So that number couldn't have got there without people who are sharing it, people like you.
Yeah. I remember when Byron was first talking about this podcast, it was just a small step and, he could have tiptoed around it, but he took that step. Kind of what that leads us into is our quote of the week from Naeem Callaway. Naeem said, "Sometimes the smallest step in the right direction ends up being the biggest step of your life. Tiptoe if you must, but take that step." And that is awesome. You never know. A lot of times you're kind of afraid to do something. Fear gets in the way sometimes, and it's hard to take that step to let's say train jiu-jitsu the first time. I think a lot of us the first time we trained we're kind of intimidated, and I will tell you I would probably have more. I've got 2 weeks of training on Byron, but I'd probably have like a month and a half. But the very first time I ever went to train, I chickened out. I drove over there and I didn't stop. I chickened out. And, it took me like a month later till I actually walked in and trained. It was a, fear and the unknown. And I thought everybody was going to be an MMA fighter who was going to, try to fold my teeth back. I was intimidated going in, not knowing what was going on. I was hesitant. I was scared. I didn't have any friends that trained. I didn't have anybody to hold my hand and take me. And like I said, I chickened out the first time, but, I kept thinking about it, and I finally did it. I took that small step. I tiptoed around it for, a month, and I finally, jumped over that line. And here I am many years later. And, it was a very big step that I took. And it's definitely done a lot for my life.
Yeah, Gary, so I got 2 things to say about that. The first thing is I don't remember for sure. This was 2002 when we started jiu-jitsu. I might have done the same thing. I do remember he didn't have a sign on the door. We trained in the back of a golf store that was unlabeled, and there was no way to tell where actually the jiu-jitsu was, to where the door was to get in there. It was like you go in the side door of this weird warehouse, and it didn't, nowhere on it said jiu-jitsu or a sign, and there was really no sign of anybody being around. I remember looking at do I go through that door or do I not go through the door? And I don't know if I had to come back and if I called and said I couldn't find it, or if I went in that first time or not. But I remember the same thing, I don't know what's in that door, and I don't know if it's something that I'm going to want to experience or not. I do remember that hesitation about my first time in there. And so something to that, realize that nobody expects you to be good at jiu-jitsu when you show up. Even if you're a big, strong person, we know you don't know jiu-jitsu if that's the case. There's no secret. And so you're not going to be good at it. It's like playing hockey. You can be a big, tough guy, go in there and play hockey. If you don't know how to skate, you don't know how to skate. You have to learn how to skate. So just realize that we don't expect you to be good at it when you get there, and that this person's running a business, and you're their customer. And if you don't feel like you're being treated like a customer, you don't feel like that they want to earn your business, there's hopefully another place to go to try. And so just kind of think that this isn't you're not joining a fight club. You're going to go be a customer at a business, and they're going to teach you jiu-jitsu. And hopefully you'll learn a lot more other than that as the time goes by. But just tell yourself that if you're trying to get a little tiptoe step into the front door or the side door of a warehouse that says they train jiu-jitsu, go ahead and take that step. And you'll probably be surprised it's not nearly as bad as your imagination is telling you it's going to be.
Yeah, that imagination. Our imagination is going to run wild and is going to make it probably a lot worse than it's really going to be. And I just know from day one, I wasn't hooked from day one, but I'm kind of a stubborn person. So I was so bad my first couple of years, I was like, I'm just going to keep going, and I'll get better if I keep doing it.
Gary, we have the interview with Elisabeth Clay coming up in a minute. I do want to tell everybody some news and maybe encourage others to do the same thing that I'm working on here. On June 18th, it's Father's Day, and it's a big day to celebrate dads and how important they are and what they've done for us. And that's a great day, and I'm fortunate enough to live close to my dad, and he's healthy, and I'm looking at the calendar like, yeah, it's coming up, and jiu-jitsu is a big part of my life, and my dad doesn't really have a clue what I do when I go to jiu-jitsu and train. And, even back when I was, living at the house, I would go and train and come back, and he would see some days I'd be sore, some days I was not. But now that I don't live at home, and he knows I go and I train all the time, and I have a podcast, we talk about jiu-jitsu, but really his exposure is very limited. And I'm thinking, man, wouldn't it be amazing if I could get my dad on the mat and just have a day, maybe he thinks it's okay, but I'm going to think it's amazing to get this person on the mat and just show them a little bit of what I'm so passionate about. So I'm calling it here in Wichita, where we're at right now. June 17th is Bring Your Dad to BJJ. It's a Saturday, so it's the day before Father's Day. I called up my dad and I asked him, I was like, hey, can you do me a favor? He's like, yeah, what's happening? I go, will you just come to jiu-jitsu one time on the 17th, the day before Father's Day, and just try it out? I'm going to be doing a seminar. The techniques are going to be really safe. People are going to bring their dads. It's going to be kind of a fun thing just to get you exposed to it. We're going to get some fun pictures, training with our dads. It's something that really I would never be able to acquire without a day like this. So if that's something that would appeal to you, tell your coach or the owner of the gym, hey, can we have a dad's day? And why not make it the Saturday before Father's Day? And if people bring in sons and daughters, bring in your dad and expose them to jiu-jitsu. So here's my plan. Very safe today. My dad's 67 years old. He's not super fragile, but I definitely don't want to get him on the mat and get him injured. That is a concern of mine. So I think I'm going to show. I'm kind of running this deal here, but I'm going to show a side control escape. It shouldn't be anything too risky. In that process, I'll talk about how important it is to use your legs and your guard in jiu-jitsu and kind of explain that a little bit. I'll probably show a simple attack from mount, maybe like a cross collar choke or something like that, and then maybe one or two other things, and really just meet everybody's dads and get some fun pictures of everybody on the mat, and maybe make a little video for the YouTube channel about it. And just encourage, right now is a big part of it, encourage you to do that, because there'll be a day when this isn't possible. Like I said, my dad's healthy right now. Next year, I hope he's healthy again, and there's no reason to think he won't be, but sometime it will come up, and it won't be possible for me to get a picture of my dad on the mat training, and it really won't be very hard. I'll swing by and pick him up on the way and take him in, and it'll be easy. And so if this is something that you might be able to get started at your gym, the Saturday before Father's Day, bring your dad to BJJ and really have an epic experience with somebody who is very important to you, or at least that's what mine's going to be. And look for pictures online and maybe even a little video, because I'm excited about this. Like, I'm thinking, who do I want to train with? And all these big names pop up, but really there's my dad. That would be really cool. And so we're getting this ball rolling here. And if you're in Wichita area, bring your dad, and we'll keep it really safe.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea, Byron. I think that's incredible. And I mean, what a better way to expose somebody to what you do all the time, what means a lot to you, and like you said, somebody who's that close to you. You know, I don't know. I just think that's an incredible idea you came up with. So definitely great time with Father's Day coming up. Bring your dad to jiu-jitsu.
Yep, maybe it'll be an annual thing, but I don't know. For me, I think once I do this time, I think I'll have like I did it and that was fun, and it was very rewarding. And maybe we do it every year. Maybe it's one time.
Maybe next year, bring your mom to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, Mother's Day.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
Don't forget about Mom.
Well, there's also a Boss's Day. I think that one would be really popular.
Now you're thinking, Gary.
Let me show you a tight triangle choke, sir.
Yeah. Let me show you how to do a neck crank. I'm thinking like, who would I, if I only got to roll with a few more people ever, I think my dad would be on that list. I've rolled with my brother and I've trained with a lot of great athletes, but, I could list 100 great athletes, but my dad is up there on that top 5. That's just a special time, and it's not going to be hard to make that happen. And I'm fortunate enough for me. That's one of the, like we're talking about gifts. That's a gift that I have is I live close to him and he's healthy, and I'm making this happen coming up soon. So I encourage you, if that's a thing that could happen in your gym and that sounds like a fun thing, don't just listen to me talk about it. Bring your dad to BJJ. Get like a day of it. It's not going to be a very difficult seminar. We're not going to be doing very technical things and even getting a hard workout. My goal is safe exposure to jiu-jitsu to these older guys, and that's something that Gary is very good at knowing about.
There you go with the old person jokes again.
Yep.
I thought we were friends.
We're still friends, Gary.
Okay.
I just tell him what's up, and he agrees. So. But I just want to get that out there. We'll talk about it again and look for a little video, I hope, on a YouTube channel with my dad in it. That'd be really fun. So here comes our interview, Elisabeth Clay. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
Working with a group of scientists, I attempted to train a group of leeches to drain cauliflower ear. This project ultimately failed because all things I trained end up giving cauliflower ear, not taking it away. As a teenager, I got fired from my pizza delivery job because I kept offering free pizzas if you could tap me out. Nobody ever tapped me out, but I got many complaints about not following IBJJF rules. I had to get congressional approval before entering a tournament. I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Elisabeth Clay to the BJJ Brick podcast. Welcome to the show, Elisabeth. You are tied for the youngest person to go to ADCC. That is quite the accomplishment. We're happy to have you on the show. Could you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience?
So I'm Elisabeth Clay, and I train in Anchorage, Alaska at Legacy Jiu-Jitsu. I've been training for about 5 years now. I started when I just turned 12, so I've been training pretty consistently, at least 5 days a week now for the past year of training 7 days a week. So, just a lot of training and just getting in there and putting in the work up here in Alaska.
You started training at 12. What brought you into the mats?
It hadn't worked out with I was doing gymnastics and it just wasn't working out with where I was training. So I was not doing anything for a couple months and I just wanted to find a sport. And I looked at, I think it was hockey, figure skating, diving, and then martial arts. And I fell in love with jiu-jitsu.
Do you remember what about it that you liked more than the other things you were testing out?
I have a bunch of brothers, so that might have something to do with it. that just getting in there and getting roughing it up and just having fun, and the family that it is as well that I was used to. And the other sports just didn't have it. I just didn't take a liking to them like I did. I think I had one class, and I was like, "This is it. This is what I'm doing."
Well, that's when you know it's right. You mentioned you have a lot of brothers. You come from a pretty big family. How has that affected your lifestyle or what you're doing on the mats?
I do have a lot of brothers. I have 6 brothers and a sister, as well as a half-sister and a stepbrother. So pretty big family. I think the biggest thing is you're used to having to sacrifice because it's not just you. It's not all about you. So in any athletics or anything that you want to do well, there's sacrifice that comes with it to be able to do it well. So I think that helps. Do
any of them train?
My 3 younger brothers train.
Cool. Are you training all in the same spot, or is that something that you guys are all doing together?
Yeah, we do. They all train with me at Legacy, and I actually help coach them in the kids' class. So that's fun. Cool.
When did you start competing, Elisabeth?
I started competing, I think, probably about 6 months in. The first chance I was competing. So I started in about June. I think the first one, I think it was in March the next year. So a little more than 6 months, but.
Did you pick that up pretty naturally on the mats competing, or was it something that at first was a struggle?
It's definitely, you get better at it over the years, obviously, but I've always wanted to do things competitively. When I was in gymnastics, I wanted to go to the Olympics. I've always wanted, whatever I do, I always wanted to do it to the best of my ability. So it was pretty, from the beginning, I was pretty sure I was going to get in there and compete and, try to be the best.
Could you describe like your style of jiu-jitsu or the type of game you like to play?
My game changes so much that if I had to sum it up, I would, right now, it is probably leg locks and guillotines as far as that goes. But it changes so much, and it changes depending on the rule set that I have to follow to be able to do it. Because, even if I have good leg locks, if I'm going in an IBJJF tournament, I can only do straight ankle locks, so I have to switch up a little bit of what I'm doing, and gi versus no gi. So pretty much whatever works, that's what I'm gonna use.
Cool. So your game changes based on the type of a tournament you're competing in. Do you have a favorite rule set that you like to compete with?
I really like the ADCC rule set. That's probably my favorite.
Where your leg locks can be a little bit more opened up there?
Yeah. It's funny enough, though, up until a year ago, I was primarily a gi player.
What changed in the past year?
I changed schools, actually.
Okay, and that's kind of what introduced you to leg locks?
Well, I liked leg locks before, but the school that I was at, leg locks were kind of taboo, so I didn't really get a chance to really work them like I had before, or like I am now. So going to a new school where it wasn't taboo and it was actually encouraged, I think that's what changed it.
So when you qualified for ADCC, can you maybe describe some of your matches, or were leg locks a big part of that?
I think I won one of my matches by leg locks. The one I was at pressure top, and the other 2 were actually by points.
When you come closer to to a tournament that has a specific rule set, when do you start changing what you're doing to prepare for that? Is it months out, or is it a couple weeks out? You'll take, like when ADCC approaches, are you taking the gi off, or do you always going to have some gi days in there?
Well, right now I actually have IBJJF Worlds coming up, so right now I'm in the gi still. So when it comes to being the last one, because I have a tournament the month before, but it is a similar rule set to ADCC, so I can train along the same lines as I would for ADCC. So it'll depend. Sometimes I'll start changing it if I have time. 2 to 3 months out, I like to start changing what I'm doing, or some of these like worlds, I only have about 3 weeks to switch rule set.
Yeah, and the rules are a huge part of a game. You have to really study that part and figure out what's legal, what's not, and how you could play the correct game that fits the rules.
Very much so. It doesn't matter how good you are if you can't play by the rule set, and I think that's part of the reason why I don't have a set game is because I have to be able to change what I'm doing depending on the rule set. Like this past weekend, I was supposed to be able to do heel hooks, and an hour before competing, they took heel hooks out. So I had to, right on the spot, be able to switch up what I was doing a little bit and still go in and win.
Wow, that's got to be frustrating to have the rules changed on you an hour before.
Oh, a little bit, but you have to stay calm, or else it's going to get to you, and then you're not going to perform like you should be able to. So you have to be able to change things last minute. Injuries happen, which I am accustomed to as well. That'll change up what you're planning on doing. Like if you're planning on wrestling and standing up and you hurt your knee or something, you're not really going to be able to wrestle. You might have to pull guard and play off your back. So being able to do things last minute and change it up is a very important part of the game.
Yeah.
At least to me it is.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way to play and make yourself kind of more diverse on the mats there. You mentioned that you like guillotines. Are you preferring, attacking from the guard, or do you like to do these standing up, or from the top positions, or everywhere?
I'll try to get them from anywhere, but I actually like using them to pass the guard and then get the submission on the other end, because I can dive over, specifically in no-gi, dive over to catch the head and the front chancery and use that as control, to not just using it as a submission, but also as a control position.
Very nice. They have to imagine, you're trying to pass my guard. I have to watch my legs, and I have to watch my neck, as I'm trying to figure out how to attack you and keep you from passing all at the same time.
Exactly. It's nice to be able to throw things, because if I can go back and forth between things, it's a lot harder to defend. Defending one thing's easy, but when you have to defend, 2, 3, 4 things, then that's when things start working.
Absolutely. Sounds like a very fun game to watch.
I think it is, but I might be a little biased.
No, I think you do have a fun game to watch. Elisabeth, you're competing at a very high level, and how often are you training, and what's that look like?
I train 7 days a week, 2 to 4 classes a day, as well as either lifting, so strength and conditioning, and cardio. So lifting 3 days a week and cardio 3 days a week on top of all of that.
Wow, that's a lot of time training and preparing. What does your cardio look like? How do you prefer to work out with cardio?
My cardio, I'll either swim, which is I don't like swimming, but sometimes you have to add that in there. Swimming is good. Or I'll do hills, so a super high incline with lower speed, or I'll just do sprints. So all of this is on a treadmill, though.
Except for the swimming part. That part's in the water.
Yeah, except for the swimming part. It's obviously in the swimming pool.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's a lot of training. I know I wouldn't hold up to that. Possibly being younger, you heal and you recover faster.
Very, very much so, but it definitely does take a toll on the body. That's why I think the strength and conditioning portion of it is extremely important, because it keeps everything intact.
Now, you've had some other activities, yoga and gymnastics. How have those affected the way you grapple now?
Well, I started adding in the yoga because I had such a bad back injury that I couldn't train. I couldn't really do anything. I was in bed for a while, for about a week or so there. I couldn't even walk. My back was so messed up. So I went, and I couldn't do normal yoga. I had to do a hot flow so that the room was warm enough to loosen up the muscle so that I could then move and strengthen everything else up.
And how long did that take to get over that back injury?
It probably took about 6-8 months, but I was competing 3 weeks later. Wow.
And did you injure your back on the mats?
Yeah.
Do you remember like the move was happening, or maybe the position that caused it?
We were practicing smash passing a lot, and so I had somebody else smashing just on my low back, and it wasn't taking it. It was hurting a little bit, but being an athlete, you're extremely stubborn and hard-headed. So, well, at least I know I am as an athlete.
Yeah.
Just being extremely hard-headed, and I'm like, I'm fine. It's just it just hurts a little bit. I'm just gonna keep pushing through it, and then I'll be fine. And for the most part. That it's just it gets you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, the kind of the slower buildup of an injury sometimes catch you by surprise. So, are you in school? Are you done with school? What's going on with school?
I'm actually graduated from school now, so I train full time, and I'm not going to school anymore. So it's definitely nice to not have to worry about school anymore. It has allowed me to train, to add in more classes. The last summer, I was still training other than the strength and conditioning the same amount I'm doing now, and I finished 5 subjects, but my sleep went to crap for the entire summer.
Wow, that's a full schedule. So you graduated early, right?
Yeah, about 2 years, I think.
Wow. Is there a story behind that, or were you just super smart, or you worked as hard on the mats as you do at school, or what's going on there?
I just worked hard to get it done. I just put my mind to it. It isn't, it's not about being the smartest, honestly. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how talented you are at something. If you can't put the work in and you don't have the heart, you're not going to go anywhere with it.
Wow, I think you said a lot there. Can you think of a time maybe as you're training and you kind of discover that, like, the harder I work, the more I see these good results?
Honestly, I think that was instilled in me from my parents specifically. My mom, she's always had that mentality. I think she has over 15 years in schooling, just in college. Not even, she might even have more than that. So it's all hard work and putting your mind to it.
Yeah, and then also you're surrounded by a really great team. Can you tell me a little bit about the people who are on your team? Up at Legacy, it's awesome. It's best gym I've ever been to. Great group of people, super chill environment, and yet you get super hard work in. We're in there just beating the snot out of each other. And, at the end of it, you're up, you're hugging each other, and you're laughing, staying after joking. And I think that keeping the environment light and yet still being able to train hard is an extremely important aspect of my training and what's gotten me where I'm at. Do you train with mostly guys, or are there quite a few women in your class?
I train with pretty much all guys. As far as my main training partners go, it's all guys. And I like doing that, for one, because I think they have a different mindset a little bit than women do. The fact that they'll keep going even when it's uncomfortable. Not that all women obviously have that they won't keep pushing, but it's harder to find, is the fact that they're stronger than any girl that's going to be at that size. So I have to be 10 times more technical, which in return helps me in competition when I go through and when I'm going to do stuff, and the girls aren't as strong. So I think that helps.
Have you ever been surprised by the attributes of somebody you're competing with, because you just train mostly with guys? Maybe some of the girls you compete with are more flexible than somebody you're usually dealing with, or maybe they have a trickier guard than which you typically have to try to pass?
There are some of the guys who train with are extremely flexible as well. So you would expect that if I was only training with guys that weren't flexible, then yeah, that surprised me. But we have a couple guys in the gym that are super flexible and play ridiculous guards that it doesn't bother me when I am going against more flexible girls.
Elisabeth, what do you do to prepare mentally before you step on the mat to compete?
For me, I have to have my headphones. One of the tournaments, I forgot my headphones. I literally went and spent $200 on a brand new pair of headphones because I can't compete without my music. I have to have my music in, and a lot of times I'll do my warm-ups, a lot of Granby rolls and that type of stuff, but as soon as I feel my lungs or anything, I stop and I'll sit against the wall and just stretch a little bit, but my music is in the entire time. The entire day, pretty much, I'll have music in and out of my ears, and then an hour or two before I'm competing, I have headphones in the entire time.
What are you listening to?
It'll change. It all depends on what my mood. I couldn't even tell you.
Okay.
Because it'll be all over the place.
Do you think it's more of a
a bit of a distraction to help calm the nerves, or are you getting yourself excited about what's going to happen, or how are you using that?
A lot of times I'm going over and over in my head a game plan, stuff that could happen, and trying to keep myself just in the zone and ready to go out and kill it, because otherwise I'm just thinking about other things. You're not ready to go and just put everything out there and, just thinking about all the hours that I put in, because, it's easy to, when you get out there and let's say you're getting choked, it's easy to just give up. I mean, you went all the way, you are getting choked. It wouldn't be a bad thing to just tap right there, or you can go in your head and think about everything that you've done to yourself for the past few months to get yourself where you're at, and you either give up right there or you keep fighting through it.
Wow, that's great. What belt level are you currently?
I am a blue belt, actually.
Okay, and what was the transition like competing towards the end of white belt and then starting to grapple with the blue belts? Was there a big jump in competition level from those two different categories?
I never, other than in the kids, I never competed at white belt. I actually started competing with the blue and purple belts. I think the first time I was 14 or 15, and I competed in the adult division for the first time at 14. So from there was a huge jump, just physically speaking, because, obviously the kids aren't as physically developed as the adults. So that was, for me, the biggest thing. It wasn't even necessarily technique level. It was the fact that the women were, obviously, they were women, so they're more physically developed and a lot stronger. And
I'm guessing, much like you pretty much just trained with guys, where you probably weren't training with a lot of kids at that time either, mostly with the adult class? Or
no,
was
it? I think I trained with kids maybe the first month or two out of my training, and then I was completely in the adult classes. And then I did the kids classes as well, and then about 6-8 months in, I then started helping in the kids classes.
Wow, that's cool. Elisabeth, thinking back, we all, when we're trying to be good at something, there's times that it's frustrating. Could you maybe share something that was frustrating and how you got past that?
For me, it was probably that back injury, because I played such, at that time, I was playing a lot of like inverted guard and stuff. And of course, that puts a lot of strain on your low back. So I had to go from playing a lot of guard and just, messing around to I had to be so protective of my back. I couldn't invert. So I had to start playing top a lot and a lot more closed guard, which it was extremely frustrating. And there were points I would just say screw it, and I would start playing inverted again and immediately regret it the next day because my back was in so much pain. But you just have to think to yourself and, try to work around it and remind yourself why you got into it and why you're training, whatever that reason is. Whether it's because you just want to do something fun and you love it, or because you love it and you want to, do it competitively. You just to remind yourself why you do it.
So that will help you get past those frustrations about, you're not playing the game that you've liked to play so far, your inverted game. You really had a lot of success with that. Okay, you're having to avoid that, and it's frustrating. You're not performing as well as you did, a few weeks ago, or even a month ago when you were doing that. But remind yourself why you're doing this, and that should kind of help you get through that situation, you're saying?
Exactly, as well as the fact that injuries or whatever it is on the other side of it, they always end up helping you because it's making you still do jiu-jitsu and still develop whatever you're doing without one of your tools. So your other tools are getting that much better. And then when you're able to add in whatever tool it was back into it, it's going to be so much better than it was before because you have all of your tools to be able to do the move instead of, missing one of them.
Elisabeth, can you think back to a time when you decided that you wanted to take this like extremely seriously and, look at you now, you're training all the time and this is like a full-time thing for you. Could you think, when was that transition to where you were just checking out jiu-jitsu and it was really fun and exciting to where this is really what you're going to do with your life?
I think I was one of the weird ones that I think I just kind of knew from the beginning that I wanted to do it and train hard. I started training, when I first started training, I was already training 5 days a week and doing as many classes as I could. You know, it wasn't as much as I'm doing now because it was a much smaller school, and there weren't as many classes offered because it was in a fishing town, so everything pretty much stopped in the summer, so training was hard. But I just wanted to do it hard from the beginning and try to make it all the way and get serious in it.
There you go. You had a fast start, and you're still keeping that going.
Yeah. You know, I was told that I was going to burn out because I started so hard and with such fire that, you know, you can only keep that up for so long. You're going to burn out. You know, I'm still in it 5 years, and I feel like I'm just picking up more and more momentum. So
that's cool. That's good for you. And I could tell with this type of attitude and this drive, you're going to go very far on the mats.
Thank you.
Elisabeth, what do you expect ADCC to be like when you get there?
You know, I really don't know. I'm extremely excited to even be on the mats with a lot of these people. I did not expect it this soon. You know, I figured they're pretty much all black belts, so I figured I had another, 5, 6, 7 years minimum before I, be on the mats with any of them. So I don't know what to expect. But I'm going to go in there like it's just another tournament. Obviously training hard because it is a tournament. And we'll see where it takes me.
Do you like to push the pace in your matches?
I like to go out there a little. I feel like I feel out the match the first little bit, but I definitely like to take control from the beginning.
Yeah, if you could do that on the mats there, you'll be having a lot of success in ADCC. That's a great way to start your match. Elisabeth, can you take me back maybe and tell me what it was like during your first tournament and kind of what you experienced, how you did, and what you thought about your performance there?
See if I can even remember my first tournament. So I actually was competing against 2 or 3 of my teammates, and I had 1 or 2 other people in there that were not teammates. So I went in, and I think I won all my matches except for the last one. And it was a kid. It was a small tournament, so there were no belt divisions and no weight. It was specifically age was all. So this kid was I think he was a year older than me and a foot or 2 taller than me and probably had 40 pounds on me and had been training a lot longer. So me being as competitive as I am, I should have been happy with that. I went in, I got second. I lost to a kid that had been doing it a lot longer than me, and I just wasn't. I was so upset with myself. And looking back at it, it wasn't a bad performance for how long I had been training. I did really well, but I was just upset with my performance. That's nothing that's changed. I'm always, win or lose, I always see the mistakes and want to fix them. So I got back on the mat, I think, as soon as I was able to. So 2 or 3 days later, and I was back and just training harder than ever because, it lights the fire under you for sure.
Yeah, it's weird that they would put age as such a big factor on making their brackets and divisions that they end up grouping people who are way different sizes and different skill levels just because they're a similar age. That seems kind of odd.
Yeah, it is weird, but, that's how it was done. And that's how they still do it, but it's okay.
Yeah. You still had, overall, it sounds like it didn't give you a bad taste of grappling or competitive jiu-jitsu and you stuck with it and here you are today.
No, as far as everything else, it was a really fun tournament. But just being competitive, I do remember I was super nervous before. So
do you think that
but I still get nervous. Yeah,
I think everybody gets somewhat nervous. I think that the thing that people try to do is turn that nervousness into excitement, and because that energy is going to be there, and just try to get a little bit of excitement instead of nerves. Might help you a little bit with your performance.
That's definitely good.
What would be some advice you have for somebody who is going to do their first tournament, kind of looking back at yours? If somebody, maybe not, a kids division or a women's division, just any general student who has been training for a little while and they want to compete, what advice would you have for them?
just get out there and do what you've been training to do. And also don't go in there thinking that you're going to lose, because if you think you are, you're probably going to. But also don't be upset if you don't go in and win. And just, whatever happens on that mat, look at what happened. I like to film what I'm doing and rewatch the video and then, see the mistakes and then just work on the mistakes after the fact. You don't get good at tournaments. You get good in the hard training up for the tournament. So, it is a tournament. Take it seriously. Get in there, get some hard training in beforehand, and then just go do what you've been training.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think that will help you maybe take away some of the nerves about your first tournament. Just go out there and do it like you've been training for it.
Exactly.
Having your brothers on the mat, what's it like teaching them and trying to get them to improve as martial artists?
For the past 4 or 5 years, I actually haven't coached them. Obviously we're still on the mat, so if there's something that they need help with and nobody else is there to help them, I'll do it. But for the most part, teaching family does not work well. I have one, not the brother right under me, but the middle one. He's now able to listen to me, and so that's nice to be able to actually help him with things. But for the most part, I stay a little hands off, make it easier for them, because emotions will get involved, and it doesn't matter if I say the exact same thing, or I could say something different because it's a sibling. So I try to stay hands off.
Pretty wise advice. I've got my wife on the mat sometimes, and I try to help her with what I can. But a lot of times it's just somebody else saying something because it's not her husband is telling her this.
Exactly.
And that is so much better of advice. So yeah, that's it took me a while longer to learn that than it has you, but yeah, that's very good. Sometimes you want to help you want your brothers to do absolutely the best they can, but sometimes just letting somebody else help them out is the best thing.
Yeah, well, and sometimes you want them to do it so well because of it that it's too much. I've realized that your expectations of siblings are way higher, but that also comes from in gymnastics. My sister coached me a lot. And she was so much harder on me than anyone else, which looking back at it now was good, but it was not fun during it. And because it was the coach, I'd go home. I'm a kid. I want to have some candy or something. She'd be like, you can't have that. Here are carrots. So I get being on the other side of it, not just being the one helping or the coach.
Elisabeth, tell me a little bit about doing gymnastics. What was that like? Were you competing or what kind of gymnastics things were you doing?
I actually never got into competing because I wasn't in it long enough because we were moving around so much. So, but definitely the conditioning aspect of it, it's the hardest conditioning I have ever done. You condition about half of your training or so is pure conditioning. But one thing with the gymnastics that's helped is long hours you're not going to get anywhere if you don't have, 80 hours a week or more. So I think that has helped a lot as far as me being able to train as much as I do now in jiu-jitsu and conditioning and that type of stuff, because in gymnastics, long hours are from the time you're 5, you have extremely long hours. And, just getting up, going to competitions, and then getting right back to training. So I think it's helped in that aspect.
Elisabeth, I'm so clueless on what gymnastics is like at that age. Is it like doing floor exercises, balance beam, or what kind of was it everything?
For the girls, you have so depending on the age, it's actually, they do it by levels, and I've been out of it for so long that I don't want to quote anything wrong. So
yeah, but
a lot of conditioning as far as like core work. The ropes will have you stay in an L position, and you'll climb the rope with just your arms. And just at that age, round off, back handsprings, that type of stuff. It's not and it all depends on if you're doing it competitively or not.
Do you think that getting involved in that helps you get a fast start on the mats with jiu-jitsu?
I think it helped. especially coming from, even though I didn't do it competitively, my older siblings did, and it was, having to do things competitively, or not having, but them doing it competitively and me seeing it, and that's what I wanted to do. So that's why I took to jiu-jitsu, I think, so fast like I did, and wanting to do it competitively so fast.
Cool. It sounds good. I did a show, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. I interviewed, I think, 6 people who won the white belt divisions at Worlds, and seeing what they were doing. And a lot of them were just athletically very active before they came to jiu-jitsu. So although jiu-jitsu was new to them, they definitely had a big background in athletics and sports that they were able to build upon when they came to the mats.
Yeah, I think especially at the lower levels, being athletic and conditioning almost has more to do with who wins than being more technical, because, once you get far enough in it, obviously you get promoted, so you're no longer at that white belt range. Not that there aren't technical white belts by any means.
Yeah, I'm seeing anymore. You watch a white belt match that's for a medal. It's like, man, these people are amazing at what they're doing there. So it's definitely at the very competitive levels, all the divisions are tough.
Yeah, very much so. And winning any tournament at any level is a feat in itself.
Yeah, and that just, I mean, as long as you belong in that division, you're not, hopping down, into the beginner division where you belong at a really high level. You look at what you're doing. You're going to ADCC. You went to the trials. You fought the best people you could find, and you're just seeking out that competition at a high level. And that, again, to your hard work and your work ethic, trying to compete against the best you could possibly compete against. And long term, that's going to be a huge success factor.
Yeah, and being able to take the hard competition mentally is another thing. If you only compete, if you're sandbagging and competing where you're not supposed to be mentally, if you ever decide to go up and compete where you actually belong, even if you're better than the other ones, you're mentally not used to being able to take the grind or the tough competition.
Elisabeth, you're very active on the competition scene. You're training very hard. You probably can't do this without some sponsors and some help. Who's helping you?
I would like to. So Zebra is helping me, and actually I'm up on their page right now. I have a blog running up there. On it is, as well as Alaska Fight Shop and Alaska Fight Club, or Alaska Fight Club, sorry, Alaska Club.
What is Alaska Fight Shop?
So it's just it's a small gear shop that we have here in Alaska. They have some nice gear. So they do all of the Legacy gear. So the gis, the rash guards, as well as the fact that they have some of the Fight Shop rash guards and just shirts and that type of stuff. So apparel.
That's cool. And, we think Zebra mats have very high-quality mats. Do they have other things as well?
They do. I actually have one of their water bottles right now. So I would have to go and check out their page right now to see what all they sell. But they have some cool stuff up there.
Looks like you have a rash guard of theirs. Is that something that they...
Yeah, that's something that they sent me. It's a nice rash guard.
Cool.
It's actually pretty cool. It has a zebra on the back.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Hey, Elisabeth, we got to get you a headphone sponsorship. Yeah,
that would be nice.
That would be very fitting for you. Elisabeth, what's the best way for somebody to kind of keep up with you, follow what you're doing online, and to just kind of watch you get ready and watch you compete?
I'm most active on my Instagram and Facebook. So it's Elisabeth Clay BJJ, and it's Elisabeth with an S. And then it's just Elisabeth Clay on Facebook, as well as if you go to zebraathletics.com, you can follow my journey up there.
Awesome. And I urge everybody to go do that. It's going to be very fun watching you compete, come up through the ranks, and you've definitely proven you're working very hard and you're able to take that hard work and turn it into results on the mats. Do you have any final thoughts or an idea you'd like to share with the audience before I let you go?
Just keep training hard. Whatever you want to do, even if it's not jiu-jitsu, just think of what you want, put your mind to it, and, with hard work, you can pretty much get anything.
Well said, Elisabeth. Thank you very much for hopping on here with me.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank Elisabeth Clay. Guys, go find her on social media. I'll put links to in the show notes. Definitely a up-and-coming athlete who's already proven that. She's been training hard and doing all the work it takes to get there. But, man, 16 years old, going to ADCC, what an experience, what an accomplishment in that already. Elisabeth, I know you're going to have a great time out there. You're going to shock the world as far as what you're able to do at this ADCC. And go show them what you're all about. And it's gonna be an amazing time, and it's great to have you on the podcast before you're super famous, and we know you're gonna have a lot of success at ADCC. So thanks so much for coming by, and we hope to have you back in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Good luck, Elisabeth, at ADCC, and everybody listening. Definitely check her out and cheer Elisabeth on.
Now it is time for the Referee Corner with David Silverfox Karchmer. The Silver Fox is a BJJ black belt that has refereed over 3,000 matches, gi and no gi, kids and adult from white belt to black. And now he answers your questions. David, we got a question in that wants you to explain some basic hand gestures that a referee might be giving during a match.
Sure. Let me explain first the difference between commands and gestures. So there's a lot of people involved in a jiu-jitsu match, not just the competitors. I think that's, the obvious answer. You've got to understand there's people all at different levels of distance from the actual competition that requires either verbal commands or gestures themselves. So understand there's the competitors are closest to the referee. Then you've got the coaches are a little further out, usually in chairs at the edge of the mat or in some cases behind a barrier. Then you've got spectators that are actually watching in the stands. And you've even got spectators at home that may be watching on either a live stream or on a video afterwards. So the verbal commands are going to be those audible commands used specifically for the competitors because since they're engaged in the action, they can't look at the referee and what he might be physically doing so they can hear him. But gestures, as you're referencing or asking about, are specifically for those other participants. And in that case, I'll also include the table workers themselves that are keeping score and controlling time. Obviously, they can't necessarily hear what the referee is saying being farther away from the match. So they need a set of signals that tells them what to do. So the most common ones are those that stop and start the action. Clearly, the most common start is going to be kind of a chopping motion with your hand between the two competitors to start a match. And then to stop is going to be, arms straight out on either side. It's fairly universal as in stop. Now, again, going back to my reference to gesture and verbal command, if I say stop and I put my arms out, I'm not just audibly telling the competitors, simultaneously I'm telling the table when I've stopped, I'm telling the coaches when I've stopped, I'm telling the spectators or people watching after the fact when I may have signaled stop to them. So they work very, very well in unison together. As far as other gestures, the Federation happens to have some pretty elaborate ones, but some of the more common ones are obviously things associated with penalties, which is where you're going to make basically a right angle gesture with your hand in the appropriate color of the competitor. So your right or left arm in a right angle with your hand upward. And also, obviously, the scoring themselves is going to be the appropriate wristband to the competitor, and then a gesture of typically 2, 3, or 4 fingers that would symbolize the correct number of points you're trying to give either competitor. So these are probably the most typical ones that people need to know. And again, the Federation has some more elaborate ones associated now with if you're circling around the ring, you'll see them spinning their finger around and so forth. But really, again, the point of these gestures is so that people other than the competitors typically know what's going on, and not necessarily the competitors themselves. They're more privileged to the verbal commands.
This has been The Referee Corner with David Silverfox Karchmer. If you have a question for The Referee Corner, send it to bjjbrick@gmail.com. And of course, go to thegrapplingreferee.com for great articles, videos, and podcast interviews by David Silverfox Karchmer.
Well, I think it's time to get on to the article of the week. This week, we have our third member of the BJJ Brick podcast, our friend, and has been on here a lot, Joe Thomas. He's got a new article, like I said, Why I Do Jiu-Jitsu. It's from May 25th. You can check it out on our website or on Joe's there. But Joe, thank you again for coming to the show and giving us a new article to talk about.
Thanks, Gary. How y'all doing today?
We're doing great.
We're doing great.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you about this article. Joe, it's an interesting topic, and could you just tell us what's going on with your article there?
Sure. Yeah, it seems that I get this idea maybe from watching sports movies or maybe having been in wrestling practice with my kids when they were doing it, but it seems like when somebody's struggling, you hear the coach say, why are you here? And if you can figure that out, you'll succeed. And I do believe that's true. I think if any journey you're on, if it's long and difficult and you don't have a good reason for doing it, or you don't know what the reason is, you're not likely to see that journey through, or you're not going to be very good at whatever it is you're trying to do. And I found myself actually, as a few weeks, maybe a month before getting my purple belt, I did not know that. I did not feel ready for my purple belt. And I actually started wondering, if I'm a blue belt for the rest of my jiu-jitsu career, am I going to be okay with that? I like grappling, but is that enough? And I started really wondering and thinking about, why do I do jiu-jitsu? And so I went through some ideas that I thought, I see other people, they do jiu-jitsu for competing. They want to be a gold medalist. They want to win worlds. They want to win Pan Ams. And that's fine for a lot of people, but at my age and with everything else I have going on in my life, I don't see that as my future. I don't see myself owning a gym anytime in the future. Some guys, it's enough just to be the toughest guy on the mat at your particular rank. But again, at 50 years old, I don't think I'm going to be the toughest purple belt in the school. So that really wasn't cutting it either. So I started to think about what happens when I feel like this is all worth it? What do I enjoy out of it? And it started to occur to me that I enjoy seeing other people succeed as much as I enjoy seeing myself succeed. I'm pumped when I finally get a new sweep down and I can pull it off when I'm rolling. But I'm actually more excited when I know some guy's been working on his arm bar and he catches me with one. And it really catches me by surprise. And I'm like, holy smokes, man, that was awesome. And it really brings me a lot of happiness. And it finally occurred to me that that's what I enjoy. I enjoy seeing people grow both as an athlete and as a person, and knowing that I had a small part to play in it. And once I identified this as why I enjoy jiu-jitsu, it became much more fun for me. So I don't know what other people's why is. I don't know what yours is, but I do firmly believe that once people figure that out, the journey is going to get a lot more enjoyable. It's going to be a lot easier. And when you get stuck in the blue belt blues or whatever discouragement you're stuck in, it's going to be much easier to see that through.
Joe, I think that's an awesome point. You're talking about the blue belt blues, or even the white belt whites or blues, whatever we want to call it. But we hear that a lot. People get stuck in a rut, and they may even end up quitting jiu-jitsu at that time, and who knows if they'll ever even come back. And I think that's a great thing, like what you said, when you are kind of in the blues part, think of why you're doing this. Think of the fun you have, what jiu-jitsu means to you. And I think that, could be a way to get you out of the blues and get you keep going. But, I was just, reading your article here. Man, I was really just touched. I know I've talked about it once before, just from, talking to you. I mean, we've never met in person. I've just, read your articles and talked to you here. But, I just feel from all the stuff you say, the way you talk, that anybody that is, that gets to train with you. And I mean, I'm including myself, I consider, us talking about training as part of training. We're all, giving each other advice and listening to each other, and we're picking each other's brains to learn. But, you are just such a good person. You care about your teammates, and there's not everybody's like that. And, for your teammates and the guys that you train with at your school, they are lucky to have a mentor and a teammate like you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I do.
Yep, that's awesome, Joe.
Joe, so this is a great why. You really want others to succeed. You want to be some part of that and really help them along their journey. How are you affected when somebody doesn't succeed? Just say that they end up quitting, or, they just kind of just drop off the map and they're not coming to class. Does that affect you pretty much in a big way, or do you move on and stick with the people who are remaining there on the mat with you?
Boy, of all the questions I imagined you asking me, that one never crossed my mind. It does bum me out. I take the challenge, though. When I see people falling off, I do what I can to get them back in the mat. I try and, message people or text them if I haven't seen them in a week or two. In fact, I've got friends that I did jiu-jitsu with 3 or 4 years ago. We met through jiu-jitsu. We're still Facebook friends. We still bump into each other in town, 2 or 3 of them. And I message them probably once a month and say, man, when are you coming back? You need to get back on the mats. So I guess I would say I don't give up. I mean, until the person is no longer in my life at all, I don't see them as being completely off the mats. It's just a challenge out there for me. And one of these days I'll get them back on the mat.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Everybody's got different reasons for dropping out of the sport. Sometimes it's forever. Most of the time it's not. And it's always easier to get back into it if you have somebody, hey, if you ever want to come back, I'm here. I'll make sure I'm there the day you train. Sometimes people get a little nervous coming back, thinking they lost everything, and everybody's so good now that everybody's just going to throttle them. Where if you've got somebody talking to you, and I do the same thing like what you're doing, Joe. If I do get them back in, I'll try to roll a lot of rounds with them. I'll be very gentle, and we'll just flow roll and just have fun, and I'll introduce them to everybody and make sure they feel welcome. Tell everybody that this is my friend, and hey, take it easy. He's just coming back, and a lot of times that does work. But the key is, like you said, just stay friends and keep after them, and sooner or later. Because they normally do have that itch. Sooner or later, when times change or whatever's going on in life, they will be back.
Yeah, and I never give them a hard time and make it sound like jiu-jitsu is the most important thing in life. Yep. One of my friends in particular just got married, and he blended a family, his 2 kids, her 2 kids. I mean, I understand life's busy, and there are more important things in life. I hate to say it on your podcast. Yep. It's jiu-jitsu, But, I try and keep in touch and let him know when he's ready, we're still training. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. That is that's a good way to be. The door's open, and when you're ready to come back and train, we'll be happy that you do, and we're hoping it's back where you were, with us. But I'm even happy when people, if they quit for a little while and they end up going to a different school. Hey, as long as you're training, that's great. Get in there and train.
Not every school is a perfect fit for every person. If you live in a big metropolitan area with a dozen schools to choose from, find the one that fits you best.
That is true. Yep.
Absolutely.
And then I'll see you at the tournament, brother.
Don't cross Joe. You see Joe on the other side of the bracket? Quit now.
I wouldn't go that far. I haven't competed in a while. I got to get back out there, but that's another article.
Well, you can't, because everybody's going to drop out of your bracket. I wouldn't be. Yeah, I'm dropping quick.
Joe, we appreciate it as always. It's good to talk to you. It's you're the third member of the BJJ Brick team, and you've written many articles, and it's just a pleasure to get you on here to discuss them.
I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you so much, Joe. Man, it's awesome. Thanks for all you do.
I appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys next time.
I'd like to one thing there, Byron, before we get going a little too far on this, I definitely want to thank one of our supporters on Patreon. We have a link to it on our show notes. But Adrian from Australia donated some money to us, and we've been friends with Adrian for a while. He's been a friend of the show, and we email back and forth, and really wanted to let Adrian know how much that means to us. And thank you very much, Adrian. We appreciate all your support, and I hope you're having a great day.
Yeah, and so we do have a couple of different ways people can support us. There's Patreon, where you donate like per episode, and actually what Adrian did is he found us on PayPal and donated a chunk of money to us through PayPal, which was very generous of him. Big thank you to that, and that it really shows us that he's getting something out of the show, and he enjoys us here each and every week. All right, Gary, sad news. No Matt Tails this week, but the good news is we do have an audiobook that you've been working on that we'd like to share with the audience. And,
so now you're saying my audiobook is not going to be very popular, and it's sad news. I really appreciate the support, Byron. I thought we were friends.
I'm sad that there's not a Matt Tails. So if you enjoyed the Matt Tails and you have an amazing story to send in, do that, and we'll make a Matt Tail and share it with the audience. But Gary is working on his his audiobook. It reminds me of the quote, about tippy toe, taking that small step. Gary's audiobook is Tippy Toe Small Steps to a Double Leg, How I Do My Takedowns. And I don't know what's going on with this. You're taking a whole bunch of tiny steps to get your double leg, or what's happening, Gary?
Well, we've talked about ballerina feet, a couple weeks ago with our interview with Dustin Dennis. And, as we talked about, how you can walk on your toes. So one thing I thought that might actually help my blast double, which I've been having trouble with, is to tippy toe with really high steps and hit it from there. And the reason I thought it might work is people are going to look at you like, what the heck is that person doing? And it did work. People look at me like, what is he doing? And they get out of their stance. And the tippy toe gets me closer. They get out of their stance because they almost start laughing. And it opens up that whole space for that blast double, and leads me right into side mount, and hopefully I can finish from there. So really it's not a pop-up book like a lot of times I've done pop-up books before, but this one is it's only one big chapter. All we talk about is a double leg. We don't talk about history behind it. We don't talk about how to build strength for the double leg. The only thing we talk about is, how to walk on your toes. And I brought in Byron for that, because Byron is known for his ballerina feet. And, we talk about closing distance. A lot of times you cannot get a takedown if your distance is not there. And so we use those quick, small, high steps to get there. And most people would say, that's a waste of time. I mean, you do something like that, a bunch of steps, it's not going to work. But try it. What you'll find is somebody who's even got a great stance, they're going to come out of their stance. They may even start laughing. They're going to have no respect for you. And then you just take their soul away when you get that takedown. So I've had great success with it, and I just wanted to pass on to everybody else. So I'm going to have this, out probably within early 2021.
And you just have one chapter. You're just focusing on the big toe topic of double leg.
Well, we do talk about fungus on the big toe, but that's a prologue, because sometimes if you're walking on your toes, your nails kind of get on the mat. So there's a good chance you're going to develop toe fungus. And sometimes when you have toe fungus, people don't want to train with you. So we'll talk about, how to soak your toes and how to put a Vicks Vapor Rub on your toes, to get rid of, on your toenails, to get rid of that toe fungus. So we do talk about that, but it's not its own chapter, and I'm not a doctor, so you can't take all my advice seriously.
Yeah, I wouldn't take any of that Vicks Vapor Rub on the toe. Right now, Gary, somebody's like has toe in hand and is applying some sort of an actual medical ointment, and they're like, "Oh, should I get the Vicks out and put it on my foot?"
You want to know the crazy thing is? Google Vicks Vapor Rub for toenail fungus, and it's one of the big ones out there.
There you go.
Yep.
I feel
it really
like you're setting them up. I mean, if you Google anything for something else, there's probably something about that already. You could, Vicks Vapor Rub for, better hearing. And sure enough,
What?
somebody wrote an article
What?
about putting it in your ear. And
Did you say something?
Yeah, you've got too much vapor rub in your ears, Gary.
Oh, okay. I heard you there.
But yeah, it's truly a miracle product. Find it on our website, and all the proceeds go to help the podcast.
Yep, and every one you buy, you get a free jar of Vicks Vapor Rub.
Well, that sounds great. If you find the link on our website to Vicks Vapor Rub, it's going to give you unlimited vapor rub for life. We've got a lot of links on there, but that's not going to be one of them.
So start looking for it.
Start hunting around and looking around the website. Another place you can look around is our social media pages. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Those are probably the big ones. Twitter's not that big on... I'm just not that big into Twitters. I just don't find much use of it. But I do enjoy getting on Facebook and our Facebook fan page. And I do enjoy YouTube. Got a lot of videos on there. And it's grown quite a bit. And if you want to get more BJJ Brick, our YouTube channel is a great place to find us.
Yeah, definitely check it out. And like Byron says, he doesn't tweet a lot unless he eats Mexican food. Also, if you happen to be in 2 states, or if you happen to go 2 states above Texas, you'll be in Kansas. If you happen to come to Wichita, Kansas, send us a message, bjjbrick@gmail.com. We'd love to get some mat time, get on the mats, and train with you.
Gary, I'm glad you know where we are.
That was kind of a little joke from our last episode,
Yeah.
but it didn't work very well.
Yeah.
I butchered that very badly.
Yep, the repeat joke.
Very, very badly. Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to butcher something, Gary, and you get through it anyway.
Yep, but you always have my back, Byron. Literally.
Oh, man.
Speaking of the show, we really appreciate you all listening to it. And if you like this show, which we hope you do, and if you've listened this long, hopefully you liked it, or you're really, really bored. Hey, tell your friends about it. We really appreciate it. Letting your friends and teammates know about the show, and hopefully they like the show also.
Yep. Next week, guys, Hodger Gracie's first black belt is named Nick Gregoriotis. And now he runs a website called Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood. It's more of it's a website, but it's also a community. And guess what? Next week, Nick's on the show. I don't know if you could have predicted that from the setup, but yeah. So we bring you Nick Gregoriotis. He's written a lot of articles we've covered and talked about in our Article of the Weeks, and a lot of good knowledge from him. He got his black belt in 4 years from Hodger Gracie. That's an amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yep, and definitely check out Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood there also.
Yep, we've got lots of their articles mentioned on our previous podcast. As always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
And tiptoed in your double legs.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.